This is an RNZ podcast.
They say it takes a village to raise a child. I'm Kathryn Ryan, and here we draw on my conversations with experts on 9 to Noon to help you navigate family life. Now to getting children laughing, reading and drawing, and generally battling the lockdown boredom blues with creativity. Best-selling Australian children's author and illustrator Matt Stanton's co-creator of the hit picture books There Is a Monster Under My Bed Who Farts and This Is a Ball. He's also the creative brain behind the Funny Kid junior fiction series, the latest incarnation of which is Funny Kid Peking Duck, due to be published very soon. Meantime, Matt is hosting a daily YouTube live from his studio for kids in isolation, posting videos with ideas for fun activities and tips for drawing monsters, which apparently is the perfect thing to be drawing at this time. Matt Stanton's with us from Sydney. Hi, Matt.
Hello, good morning. How are you today?
I'm great. Are you having like really weird lockdown dreams?
Yeah, kind of. It's a bit strange. We've got 3 kids here with us too. My wife Beck and I, and three kids under 7. So it's not that kind of peaceful, reflective time. It's not the kind of time to catch up on your reading as such. It's pretty crazy in our house.
The dreams, maybe you're missing out on them, but we've been swapping notes on them. They often have themes, fairly predictable themes, and don't take too much deconstructing. But I'm thinking about kids' dreams at the moment as well, and thinking about the monsters, depending on how well they're able to sort of stay untuned to what's going on or how tuned in they are, probably affecting their dreams, and probably a way of expressing it's to get out and draw some.
Well, exactly. I think something that I've been talking about a fair bit and thinking about a lot is the opportunity for encouraging creativity in our kids in this season. I spend a lot of time when the world is a little bit more normal. I spend a lot of time visiting schools and encouraging kids in their creativity and their creative confidence, because I think when you're really young, your imagination is there and it's alive and it's fun. And as we start to get a little bit older, we lose that creative confidence sometimes. We kind of undervalue the imagination, and I think it's actually critical for our kids as they grow up in this kind of ever-changing world that we're in, that they kind of have that creative confidence. So something that I've started, as you said, this YouTube channel where I go live from my studio here in Sydney every day, because I thought in the kind of the flux of kids being home from school and everything's kind of changing around them, and even the adults around them can't necessarily offer them much certainty because we don't really have it either. That just trying to create a place where kids could tune in, kids especially that were fans of my books, could tune in and I'll show them what I'm working on and what I'm doing each day. And we do this thing every Monday that I've called Monster Monday, which is that we draw a monster together. So we create a monster. And the idea with that, in terms of connecting it with the imagination, is that you can't really get a monster wrong. Nobody knows what a monster looks like. There is no correct way to draw a monster. So let's use our imagination to create monsters. And those monsters don't have to be scary. Those monsters can be whatever we choose them to be. I've written books about farting monsters. So you can make a monster anything that you choose it to be.
That's a great point, the right and wrong thing. It's a tip, isn't it, for parents trying to help kids with some sort of at-home learning. One of the mistakes that we make is to try and channel that imagination and that creativity into things that are right and wrong. God knows the school system does it for us. Is what's really important at the moment is that they are just creating, they are engaging. Learning isn't just about the right and wrong that comes in textbooks or in, practicing your writing and your reading.
Exactly, and I think it's crucial to creativity that we park this idea that you can get it wrong, because what you need to be creative is you need creative confidence. You need the willingness to kind of just give it a go and see what comes out, to let something evolve, and if for students particularly who are often very good at school, they can navigate the school system really, really well. often creativity, or sometimes creativity, can be quite challenging because students can become very good at seeking to understand, okay, what's the correct way to do this? There's a right way and a wrong way, and I need to go the right way. And that can be difficult with creativity. The beautiful flip side of that is that sometimes some of the kids who struggle a little bit more in our school systems are wonderfully creative and are very free to think outside the box.
But we push it out of them, or we undermine their confidence by telling them they don't fit the box.
Sometimes, yeah. And I think we can see that pretty clearly with how easily it is for adults to use the sentence, "Oh, I'm not creative." I hear that all the time. "Oh, I'm not creative." I fundamentally believe we are all creative, but frequently throughout our lives, certainly as we get older, we can lose the confidence in that ability, possibly because we got told we did it wrong.
Let's look at some of the tips then that you do on your YouTube channel, and that people might pick up on as well, actually, for just especially if they are I'm not a creative person. What are some of your tips for drawing monsters? What are some of the simple things you can think about when you begin to create something as unrestrained as what your monster looks like?
Well, one of the things that I'm trying to encourage kids to do is to start in an unusual place, or to start in a surprising place. So for instance, you don't have to conceive of the whole thing before you start. I mean, I think that's something that I encounter a lot in talking to kids and adults is, "Oh, I've got this perfect idea of something in my head and now I need to reproduce it on the page." Well, that's more of a kind of a technical drawing exercise. It's not so much of a creative exercise. What you want to do to kind of warm up those kind of creative juices and stretch your imagination a bit is not have a fully conceived idea before you start. So just use a prompt. So maybe you're going to create a monster, but you're going to start with a triangle. Or maybe you've decided that you create a monster and all you know so far is that it's going to have 7 eyes. And then you just start. You don't try and conceive of the whole thing, and you kind of freely let it evolve, and you discover it as you go. And that's where that kind of the importance of not feeling like you're going to get it wrong is really important, because you need to freely follow that.
What about creative writing, again, for kids at home and away from parents, again, feeling, look, I'm not a teacher, but what are some of the tips for helping children of whatever age to get going on a story and see a story through?
So I'm talking about this a fair bit because my wife and I, we run Matt Stanton, we run a company together, and we create and publish children's books through HarperCollins. But so we're publishing a lot. We publish kind of 8 to 9 kids' books a year. And so what I'm doing with kids at the moment is I'm writing, the Funny Kid 7 is the one that's about to come out, but I'm currently writing Funny Kid 8. And so I'm talking about that process as I go with kids. So when I hit a block, I'm talking about that. And so we're talking about things like writer's block, or we're talking about things like that as they come up. In terms of actually kind of encouraging kids in their story writing, look, some kids are really have a real knack for writing and really enjoy it. But I find actually when I'm in schools that most kids find it really hard. And I relate to that, actually. And so because I'm an illustrator and an author, some of the kind of tricks that I've developed actually involve using drawing to kickstart your writing. Because if I'm in a classroom and I ask kids who here likes writing, I might get a third of the room. But if I say who here likes drawing, then I'll get 60, 70% of the room. And so what we do is we do exercises where we create a character by drawing them, similar to what I just described with the monster, and sometimes with some kind of prompt questions. And then you kind of take it step by step. Then you go, okay, so I've got a character, give them a setting, now give them a problem, introduce a problem, and then obviously help them to overcome that problem. And I mean, that's in a simplest form at that kind of grade 1, 2, 3 level. When you're up more at grades 5 and 6, then you're thinking about things like conflict. You're thinking a bit more about story structure, act 1, 2, and 3, midpoints and hooks and all that sort of stuff. And I'm talking about that as I use those tricks.
It's fabulous, isn't it, to have a children's author in real time almost explaining to children how he writes their books. Again, it's treating them like intelligent, creative, curious, interesting beings instead of it being some magic thing that only arrives perfectly formed.
Exactly. I think we make the mistake of underestimating kids a lot. I think we can, at our peril, we will think of them as kind of human beings in progress, like they're growing up into fully rounded people. They're fully rounded people now, and I think they're usually a bit smarter than we think, and they're usually a bit more aware than we think. And so it's been an interesting exercise creating content this way for kids rather than being in schools, because I actually don't know the age of the child that is watching. So as opposed to when you're in a classroom and you have to tailor your material to the age level, in this form I have to create content that is helpful, that is interest based. It kind of doesn't matter how old you are, you can access it in some way.
Sometimes you just read a story on your YouTube channel. Sometimes we do just want someone to tell us a story. And this is something that many non-bubble grandparents and caregivers can be doing at the moment. It's a lovely way to connect when you can't physically connect.
Absolutely. I mean, I often get asked by parents, like, my child's not a reader. How do I encourage them to be more of a reader? And I think the biggest thing you can do, if possible, is just have books in your home. Which obviously at the moment is a little challenging to get new books into your home, but once things go back to some form of normal, connecting in with your local library, doing book swaps with friends, buying books, and showing kids the books that you're reading, sort of giving books a presence in your home, and then reading with kids. Look, we know from research that's been done, surveys that have been done, that kids love being read to, almost whatever age. If you think they're kind of too old for being read to, just ask them. You'd be surprised how often they love to be read to. And I think we do as adults too. I think that's part of the reason for this kind of surge in audiobooks in the last few years. And so engaging and modeling reading with your kids and sharing the joy of books. That's why I write funny books, because I really want kids at this age to not think of reading as work, to think of reading as for enjoyment. And then you create a gateway. You create a kind of open door to all sorts of reading.
Matt, you did this record-breaking live stream event from the Sydney Opera House last year. You do like to do things differently. You do like to do audacious things. What was the point, and how was this done?
So, it was so much fun. So it was part of something we have here in Australia called Australian Reading Hour, which is a kind of national campaign to encourage reading. And, the publishing industry gets involved, the author community gets involved, the book selling community all gets involved, and in encouraging kind of reading and the value of reading for adults and children. And so I was an ambassador of that program. And one of the things we decided to do was this big live stream event from the Opera House, which was a phenomenal experience. What it meant was, because Australia is such a physically large country, there are a lot of more regional schools that authors struggle to get to. So as authors, I know a lot of my contemporaries, we're traveling around a little bit and visiting schools where we can. But there's a lot of schools that don't get that sort of access. And so what an event like this was able to do, it was a free event. Schools were able to kind of register for it and then connect in their classroom to this live event at the Opera House. And so we talked about all of the things we're talking about. We talked about story structure. We talked about behind the scenes. We talked about humor. We talked a lot about reading. And it was a really, really wonderful event. I was also able to answer a lot of kids' questions, which is something I like to do whenever I have the chance.
Was it 5,300 schools, I think it went to? Or 5,300 kids? Kids, yeah.
It was a lot. It was really fun.
Matt Stanton is our guest, the children's author and illustrator. You're listening to 9 to Noon. It's 19 minutes to 12 now. You refer to humour a lot. It's the basis of your writing, as it is for a lot of some of the most read authors. In particular, you know, the farts and the whatevers and the bodily function stuff. Tell me why this, well, I mean, everyone laughs at that stuff, doesn't it, even when we're grown-ups, but tell me why this is often so engaging for children and how you do it in a way that isn't just for the sake of it, but truly helps them engage with and stay with storytelling.
Sure. So I kind of operate by the ethos that not every kid says that they love to read, but every kid loves to laugh. So if I am trying to engage kids, particularly reluctant readers, into the world of books, then humour is a wonderful way to do that. And there's been some kind of surveys here in Australia around what kids look for in a book, and humour comes out on top. Humour's the thing. A book that makes them laugh is what kids look for more than anything else. And so that's the area that we've chosen to work in and create in at the moment. And one of the things, I think, in terms of the kind of the bodily function aspect of humor that we have explored with some books, I don't think that's actually about the grossness of things. And I think when books when people misunderstand that, that's when you get just a disgusting book that's not particularly funny. The thing that is funny in that moment for kids is surprise. It's actually got nothing to do with the disgusting nature of it. It's the surprise. So whether that is an actual bodily function in a classroom that catches everyone by surprise, that will make everybody laugh, or whether it's the surprise a kid receives in a book when finding a word that they weren't expecting, or something happened in the story that they weren't expecting. The trick is surprise. That's where the humor is, and that's how all jokes work, right? All jokes work on that element of surprise. The punchline has to catch you by surprise in order to be funny. That's why you can tell a joke once and it's hilarious, but if you say the same joke 5 times in a row, it's not at all funny by the 5th because the surprise is gone. So I think for people creating stories or telling jokes or trying to create that kind of humor moment with kids, it's the surprise you're looking for, not just the gross.
The Funny Kid Junior Fiction series, a character like Funny Kid, is not only the humour, but they've got to attach to him, really. And when you create a character like Max, what are the keys to making him the friend of the reader, or the kid the reader might want to know?
I think with Matt, I write the Funny Kid books as though they're a sitcom. That's how I kind of think of it in terms of how I approach the writing, which is a kind of different way of writing than you would approach a traditional novel structure. And so kind of what I've created in the Funny Kid books is this cast of characters. There are 5 kids plus a duck, and they're friends, but there's kind of inherent conflict between them. Nothing too serious, but they kind of come to heads all the time because I think there's a lot of humor to be found in conflict. And so what I was wanting to create there was a combination of characters that interact really well with each other, but also they are kind of every kid. They're not the characters in Funny Kid are not particularly extreme. They have exaggerated features. The thing that makes Max kind of unique and brings the title to the series is that Max is not the best at anything. He's not the fastest kid in the class. He's not the smartest kid in the class. He's not the best looking kid in the class. And like many 11-year-olds, he's kind of trying to work out where he fits and how to kind of engage socially in his class. And he realizes that he can make people laugh. He realizes that he can be the funny kid. And so that is kind of the thing that sets Max apart. But even so, there is that kid or a number of those kids in every class in every school in the world. So what I wanted to create was a cast of kids who really speak the language of today's kids. I want to spend time with kids wherever I can and pick up how they're talking and stay connected to them. And I think it's that connection that makes them relatable. I think when authors are kind of too distant from their audience, when they're not spending time with the people that they're making books for, there's a disconnection that can happen, and I think it comes across in the writing. So my intention is always to stay as connected as possible to the kids that I'm creating the books for.
Matt, thank you very, very much. I'm not sure if we've got the link up of how you do your book launches, but some of them are hilarious. And as you say, everyone loves to laugh, and kids certainly love to laugh. Thank you so much for your time. Matt Stanton.
Thank you so much, Kathryn.
You're welcome. Co-creator of the hit picture books, There's a Monster Under My Bed Who Farts, and This Is a Ball, and also the Funny Kid Junior Fiction series.